Another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I want to take my time and first welcome my guests because I know they're coming with a couple of expensive things. They're coming with their time, and time that commodity is so precious. It is priceless. And I want to thank John for coming to spend some of this priceless commodity with us here at Threads of Enlightenment. The other is his journey that houses much wisdom, much power, much insight, much pain. And he is here to entrust us with this. And so it is my hope that I've created a space by which he can share from his heart, his spirit, and teach us so that you and I would become better human spirits. John, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Wonderful to be here. I'm super delighted to see what evolves through this beautiful conversation and space that you've created here.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. I want you to tell them, because I've been teaching them and making them aware, John, that they are creators and that there's power living inside of them that desires to come out. And so I want you to tell them what you have created, because I tell them once a creator is awakened, the things that they hear today is not going to be the same thing 6 months, 3 months, a year from here. So tell them what you have so far.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ken. So exactly what you just said is what led me and what put me in where I am right now. And it, the end result of what we're creating here gives me a lifestyle that, right now we're calling in from Hungary, actually at a place called Lake Balaton in a co-working space just to do this call.
Thank you.
But, I have the beautiful ability to live a far greater expansive life, and lifestyle that I couldn't have considered was really available to me from, growing up in a place, in South Africa where everything was very constrained, very structured in a way that, it kept people small and it kept us, thinking in a certain level. And, from that place, you go through life only seeing so much of the journey. And as you just said, there's this moment of awakening. There's a moment of truth that is suddenly presented to us, usually through an event, through what I call hitting the bottom of the barrel type event, or as a friend of mine calls it, the Mack truck event, where you just get hit by that Mack truck and you're laying in bed going, what this happened? Yeah. And you have time to contemplate in that moment, by the way, because you're not moving. You're in you're in
I love
traction.
those times. I think we're creators, man. And so we don't get to see the ability that we have within us, John, because we are so busy within the system and plugged in, that we don't get to see the greatness until, like you said, that Mack truck comes and boom, and we lay there and we begin the quest, as they say. So talk to us.
Yeah. So the quest came from those moments, and I'll get back into those moments, as we go through this conversation, because they're important moments, and really they create those opportunities to shift reality and shift. Or ask a different question, or just ask a question that is outside of the norm. But what it brought me to was a place of working with amazing speakers from around the world, being able to bring a gift that I definitely have, which is the ability to shine light on amazing human beings and inspire others to kind of listen in and become part of, and to kind of draw people into these messages. And I see that as my primary gift. And in working with these amazing speakers for myself, before I actually started working with them, the first part was, I love their message. I love what they're teaching. I want to learn this. I realized that actually I would like to actually represent them, and I'd like to actually go out and actually be on their stages and bring other people in and really get their message out to far more. And that has evolved to an extraordinary agency called Inspiral, who represents some of the biggest in the world, all the way from Anthony Robbins, and below, I call he's like the pinnacle for me. Like he's been the one who's held the space. Tony has held the space for all of us to evolve into, and shown us, the opportunity to actually get our messages out in much bigger ways than I think anyone could have ever imagined. And he does it extraordinarily well. So all the way from that to speakers who have an extraordinary healing message through fasting, and an extraordinary message through healing the emotional bodies, and so on and so on. I call them transformational speakers. These people who give you an opportunity to transform an aspect of your life. So we are an agency for them. We bring in a tool called the giving model, which is a model of helping those speakers reach more audiences so that they can make greater impact by bridging the financial gap. And what I mean by that is there are so many extraordinary humans out there who have amazing gifts, who see the opportunity to grow. However, they haven't mastered this one aspect called money. And therefore that holds them back in so many ways. And they want to do these programs. They are motivated, they're inspired. They have such amazing visions. Yet to get there, it's going to take either a miracle, and many of them create miracles in the conversations that happen with them. And others, we actually are the miracle. We are the ones who actually hand them the door and the key to open that door that allows them to become amazing coaches or facilitators, or just go through a process of healing and evolution that transforms their experience of life.
Yeah, I think your ministry, I'm looking at it this way as a ministry, is absolutely pivotal, important. I cannot stress because a lot of those type people that do and deal with the spiritual side are focused on that side, and their revelation is more of the spiritual growth and the different peaks. And the fact that if you want to say God, the universe, look and say, wait a minute, these people also need someone like John that has the revelation on how to put that other piece that is necessary to propel them to the stages. And that's what I think your timing, what you do is needed even more so, John, because I think that arena is being expanded, and there are people today that are receiving insights that are coming, and they need to be exposed to the world. You had mentioned something before that I truly believe. There's a couple of things I tell people: get busy and start your journey, because out of it, you will discover your gift, number one. Number two, because I think it's there, John, and it comes out once in a while, but we stuff it back in because of, the busyness of living and not enjoying life. And so the other aspect of this is that once you've located your gift, John, I believe that you and I are called to live from it and through it. And that's what you're doing. And that's the beauty of this journey. And I tell them, get on it, man, because I want to see what you're holding inside of you so that we can partake of this and have a great time. So, John, talk to us. Take us back to after your mom and dad kissed you, brought you home, put you in this beautiful cage I call the crib, and start programming us about the limitations right there. I think it is a beautiful science lab. And so talk to us about your family unit. How was that, and how were your upbringing starting once you came home from the hospital, as they say?
So just to pre-frame this, Ken, I've done a huge amount of work on healing my mother and my father, in the way that, that I've created my life and the beliefs and everything else. So this conversation is a very natural conversation for me. And I feel very comfortable in this, and as vulnerable as it is, it's for people just to kind of get a sense of this and understand this is extraordinary. And I didn't actually know this as well until very recently. And, literally the last few years, I've actually really delved into this as much as I understood the teachings of it. Actually going through a process that actually was called Meet Your Parents. It was an online program that I did. It was incredible. I didn't really get how deeply, interconnected connected we are every
that's where it
aspect of
starts.
how we play things out. So, the big stuff that played out for me was that my mother and father actually were not in a loving relationship when I was born. They had already decided to separate. And I was the second child in the mid-40s for my mum and for my dad. I was born. So the late child who wasn't really wanted. It was a mistake that one last time. And, I popped out. So, a very challenging part for me was to witness my parents never sleeping in one bed together. Always had two beds, two separate beds. There was never any loving, no hugging, no kissing. Very, very neutral energy around love in my family. And of course, the effect of it, you don't know it at the time because we have no measure of what is lovable and not lovable. It's this is just what it is. So, bringing that into my life and then being challenged with that with somebody who comes from the opposite side of that with a very loving family and really understanding, a we connection, and me understanding a me connection is two very different things when you start to get into relationships, because I go into relationships looking out for me, making sure I'm okay, I have an escape route and everything else, where other people who have had the opposite of that go in a very weak connection. And these things start to play out and you start to see them, or they become, these interesting conversations and, you start to trigger things inside that then open up the awakening of this, and you can actually get to see it. And that was the biggest one for me to see was one of the biggest ones I got to see was this thing where I had to always look after myself. I felt like it was all about me being safe. As much as I thought I was in there and I loved the other person and so when I really delved it back, I could see how separated I was with them. And that was absolutely a reflection of mum and dad sleeping in those separate beds, being there for the kids. That was their decision. We're going to stay together for the kids. And how many families, besides obviously the families that separate, and you have, that broken up side as well. So that was a very big part of it. And I grew up really having to look after myself. In South Africa, they were both working flat out, and I was looked after by the nanny. So really, I was on my own all the way through. My sister, 5 years different, a very separated amount of years that she didn't want to play with the little kid because he was an annoyance more than anything else. So it creates such a deep need also for love. So this over exaggerated need to have people like me, and over exaggerated need for love in my life and need for other people in my life, because I didn't have any of that when I was growing up. I was literally the little kid that played in a sandpit on his own for hours and hours on end.
Wow.
And that's the memory. Those are the things that we get to heal in this process by asking a different question. And the first question was asked when I had my first marriage, and really within 1 year the marriage was over, and I actually sat in tears after I was very Christian, marriage and everything else. And I just questioned. I said, I stood there in front of a group of people, in front of, in front of God, and I made this commitment to be with them for life. And in an instant, in a year or so, I'm out. How is that a reflection of something that reflects who I would like to be in the world? How can I make such a commitment and just break it so easily? There's something else here. There's something I'm not seeing. And that was the first question. That was the first question I asked myself. Like what is it in me that has me just break a relationship and break a connection so easily and just walk off? And when I asked that question, that opened up this is a great example of how universe just reflects so straight back to you. Within months of that, I'm sitting in my home and I've got the television on. It's during the weekend, and I see this man's face pop up, and he's talking about this like woo-woo stuff called meditation and stuff. And And like, I pay no attention to it. And about an hour or so later, he shows up again on the TV, and and this is like afternoon TV. So like, these ads, all these weird things kind of come up. And it's like, for 3 days, I can't stop seeing this guy show up on the television. Boom, boom, boom. I go, what is this? I need to pay attention to this. Like, what is? What, I don't even know what meditation is at this stage. I'm 30 years old in my life. I have no idea what meditation. I'm so unconscious to any of this work. Mm-hmm. And I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to go and listen to this guy. Yeah. That was universe kind of going, hello, this is the way, this way.
Yeah.
Because I asked the question. I just asked the question. And the question was, what is it in me that has me just, make such a commitment and break it so easily? And I could not understand it. I sat with that for many months and contemplated that. And I had no answer. I just had no answer. So that was the answer that came.
Wow. I think, John, when we get into that space of the brokenness, and I think the questions that we ask is absolutely in its purest form and its most powerful. It is not asked with a distraction, where we're not focused. And I think because we are so focused within that moment, that when we release those words, that the pureness and the power that is within it, that it goes out and seek to bring the answer to us. And I think when we get in that, and that's what enlightenment to me, Sean, is the asking of the questions. And that's why I say to someone, when you go before a coach, most of them, 99% of them, if they're a true coach, have been through that situation. And the thing that they know is the questions to ask, because you don't know because you're so busy, but they know what to ask and how to ask it to you to bring out this specific thing, because they went through it and they are able to assist you to get you out of your situation faster. So you're 30 years old. Where was this calling that sent you? Where did you end up, John? Was it a different country? What happened? And where was this location? And once you got there, what did you do? Because you're coming out of you're coming out of your comfort zone, seeking. So talk to me about that movement from your comfort zone into the space of seeking, because it does cause you to do some crazy things that people would say is crazy, but to you, it makes absolutely 100% sense. And you see it as the only way or the next step. Talk to me about yours.
Yeah. So in that moment, I've already moved from South Africa to Australia. This is when that message comes up in Australia. I transitioned from running my own business in South Africa to get my visa in Australia. I've actually joined a massive corporate. No idea why I was even there. I was even sitting going, what have I done? What do I need to, why am I even in this job? I don't do jobs. I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah. And so lots of those questions. So number one, I actually go and watch the presentation of this guy. His name is Michael. And Michael gives this extraordinary story and extraordinary experience of meditation. We're actually in the process, he actually takes us through a meditation, and I'm totally in it. And I just go, wow, this is, how come I've not learned this? It's not in school. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no need for it to be in school as part of that system. So that opens me back up to going, I need to move. I leave that literally within a month. I leave the corporate space and I go, I'm out. Sorry, I'm going to go. I need to go over here and I need to continue on my mission. So I open up my business and I start back on that journey of being in control of what I'm driving forward. Nothing special at that moment. However, in that journey, I have an opportunity to go over to Melbourne. So I fly over to Melbourne. I want to open up another office, and in that moment of doing that, I start networking, and I start to meet these amazing coaches. Funny you say that. And I meet this amazing guy named Rick Schnabel, and he's got this beautiful company called Life Beyond Limits. And I'm curious, there's something about this guy. He's different to everyone else in the group. He's uplifting and everyone else is very business-like. And I go, I need to talk to this guy. And I go and have a conversation with him. And we sit and we have lunch and chat and everything else. And I'm just in like this space of whatever you do, I want a part of this.
Yeah.
I'm in whatever you're selling me here, I'm taking. And I actually started getting coached from Rick and really, lots of beautiful techniques to help me kind of uncover the first layers of the onion.
Yes. The meditation, John, I did that. I still do it. I practice it. It's a part of my life, and it's part that I am able to control the energies that are on the outside. I am able to have somewhat of a fortress that protects me. And that fortress basically allows me, when someone makes a question, asks a question, or does something that can disturb that energy, that fortress gives me the time to respond from the space of calmness. And I think without that protection, that morning, I meditate in the morning. Without that, before that, my world, I was in corporate America. Whoa, it was all over the place, and my stress, all that stuff. But when I got into meditation, I was able to control even my stress from the outside forces. So here you are, you're exposed to this, and you're meeting, because like I said, once you have switched, and I tell people, the switching comes from a statement. I call it, John, a statement of faith that you speak within yourself. And I tell them life is a series of statements of internal decisions that you make, that you speak. And when you speak that statement, it is housed with power because you have just decided. You're not fluttering all over the place, undecided. And the human being is set up that once he or she decides, the Bible has a term that says, decide a thing and it shall be established. Because what? You're going to take the necessary steps to make it come to pass. And so you are beginning to shift your perspective as you are having these conversations. Talk to me, John, as to how did you start to now manage self within these encounters, the information, the additional information coming into you, and how did it sit within your spirit, and what did you do?
Before I get to that, I just want to add to what you said there, because there's parts that really resonate with you, like this idea of making a decision.
Yeah.
And I love words, I love language, and the word decision comes from the word incision, to cut away. And when you make a decision, you cut away all other options. Mm-hmm. So you actually the only option is the decision that you've made. Thing is the opening as well of you moving through towards what you want to create, or what you want to move towards. And then the other part that you spoke about, which was the space that you create with your meditation. What I've found with meditation, I meditate constantly during the day, and you probably get a sense of what that means. I'm not actually physically sitting to meditate. I actually I'll go for a walk, and I'll be in a state of meditation, or of everything around me. And what I find in that is, it's kind of like you can be, if I relate it to music is not about how many notes you can hit at one time. Mm-hmm. The music is created by the spaces between the notes.
Yes.
That's what my aim is to create more spaces between the notes. I'm a male and I'm a masculine, and I drive things forward, and I'm just creating more spaces between the notes now. And in those spaces are those beautiful opportunities to kind of drop into, a conscious, something that consciously just drops into, as a friend of mine calls it, the potato. It wasn't the potato a moment ago. Now it is. You suddenly have these little moments of inspiration and ideas, and maybe I should call so and so, and then you check your phone, and so just sent you a message. And you go,
yes.
How cool is that?
Plugged in, man.
So it's creating that space, creating that music, creating that actual music for your life, and that rhythm, and how that shows up. Then for me to then go from where these are opening up is really to constant. I guess it's the constant checking in on where my drivers are coming from. And it's not easy, but it's available to like, what is my motivation? What is my motivation? What is my motivation? What's it coming from? Is this motivation coming from a place of lack or from a place of abundance? Like, just like that simple question. Like, why am I building this business? I'm trying to grow it as much as I am. Is that coming from a place of, like, I want status and I want people to, give me some kind of response and acknowledgement? Or is it actually something that's so deep inside me that I literally, my life would be lacking the purpose without it. So you're constantly asking those questions, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers straight away, but like you said, just as you start to make a decision to go in a certain way, and then you start asking better questions, the better questions are always answered. And our job is to be still enough to see the signs, to hear the whispers, the things that are being delivered to us, because I believe that they're always there. They're always being shown to us. The universe is showing up for me. It's giving me direction, and it's giving me an opportunity to move towards that purposeful end result of my life. And if my job is to do nothing else but ask that question, how is the universe showing up for me in this moment, even when I get knocked down? The question is, so how is this a beautiful message and a beautiful sign on where to go now? And that really those are the main mechanisms really that I'm living by. I have this saying that I've held now for about 10 years. Everything is perfect, and our job is to see the perfection in the imperfections.
Yes, powerful. That is powerful, though, because what it does, it creates a different energy when you have that type of perspective, if you will, and it doesn't allow a negative energy to give birth in your life. And I tell people, when the tough things come, do not even consider the dark energy. Don't even consider it. It is not necessary to delve into it. Consider not, I would tell them. Focus on, okay, this has presented. Look for the beauty. Look for that energy that will propel you forward, not cause you to fall backwards. And so consider not when it comes. And like you said, life is a series of questions. This is how we grow. I think also, John, it is how we tune in, and the teachers will say to be present, but it's like within being present, it's like a knob on a radio that you have to tune it in and turn it slightly. And it's not a lot. You turn it slightly, and then the reception comes in a little better. And how do you turn it? You ask those questions. And as you ask those questions, that knob is turning, and then boom, you got the message, you received it, and you considered not the other side, because that energy is contradictory to your growth. I want to take my perspective and power my life through that by shifting it. And that's what you've done. So, this is what I try to tell people, John. This thing is not as difficult as they make it. It's just asking the right question, putting yourself in a space, but also there's a deepness within the individual that is, I want to take it down more deeper. It says it's a spiritual desire. It is not a mental desire where we just have it go by when someone calls your name and it disappears. It is something deep. And once we have that mental desire where the question comes from, it is something that is retained. Like you said earlier in the conversation, that man's face kept popping up because that was a spiritual question that you could not evade by running around all over the place. You had to focus, get his message, tune it in, and then you move and direct your life. But talk to me, John, once you began to make these adjustments as we are talking about, shifting your perspective, how did you then, from shifting this perspective, began to head towards the space that you now occupy with the business and the entrepreneur? Because you've been that all this time. But how did you recognize that this was the need that within the space of teachers and spiritual folks, that was a necessary tool or platform by which you can then enhance and make the world aware of those folks. How did that transition happen to you?
It's a great question. It's one of those mysteries of life kind of things. I had no idea. Like, this was not part of my conscious business creation. I fell into it. It was presented for me to trip and fall into it.
Yeah.
And really, I had a web development company in 2009. I had a web development company. I had an education company. I had a co-working space. I had a construction company, and I had multiple developments. and I had the most extraordinary gift from universe, which was called the GFC, the Global Financial Crisis, in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all just taken. Just like that. It's like, this is not where you need to be going.
Yeah.
It was just all right off the table. And literally, the ego was crushed. The ego could not believe that I'd worked so hard to create all of this, in my mind, wealth and success. Like the ego was well at work at that stage. As much as I was still meditating or those types of things, I was just unconscious to this greater calling. And the universe just went, this is not the way.
Yeah.
And literally took it all away, which is fantastic. And that was in 2009. And in 2010, between 2009 and 2010, in kind of crawling out the hole, because it was a hole that flattened me multiple millions of dollars in debt, and just rushing to let companies go, and people go, and my, all of my attachment to, promises I'd made and all the things that I was wanting to do with the different companies. And eventually, about a year later, I crawled out, and I sat in this place with two of my mentors at the time, because I'd found these two guys kind of shown up, and I'd kind of reached out to them. I need some help.
Yeah.
And basically, I realized that the only thing left that I had was the marketing tools that I developed from all of these other companies, and a group of people who we were meeting on a regular basis through the speaker that I was connected to, a guy named Roger Hamilton at the time. I saw Roger Hamilton running a beautiful company called Excel, bringing together amazing people to help create, I guess, an evolution in the way that we look after our planet.
Yeah.
And I realized that this was the only thing left. And I went, okay, so if this is all the value that's left, let me do something with it. And in that moment, I started to use it. I started to promote and started to talk about just that one thing, left all of this other stuff out the way. It all came back so fast. It spun my head. And within a few months, I moved from Australia. I went and actually started to live in Bali at a resort. In fact, I was given a resort to go and live in for the next 2.5 years to basically evolve and help to grow this community and the teachings and all that type of thing. So, I literally was picked up over here and gone, no longer, we're going to go over here and placed over there. And I do remember leaving Australia and getting on that flight. And I remember leaving all the debts behind, I'd done my best to clean up as much of that mess that I could. And I remember standing at the airport about to check in, with a little bit of baggage and whatever else, and my partner at the time. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? This month I have no one to pay. I have no debts. I have no leases. I have no nothing. I'm leaving and I'm flying over and I'm going to start a brand new life. It was liberating. It was literally my whole life was given back to me. The universe said, here you go. Now start from this fresh piece of land. It's like blank canvas. What can we create from here? Yeah. And I had to do nothing. All I had to do was watch the catastrophes kind of unfold and just see them for the beautiful gifts they were. And I promise you, it took me months to see it. The first few months I held on for dear life onto these companies and I was crying and I was breaking down and the banks were calling. And eventually I just surrendered. Eventually there was nothing more I could do. I just surrendered. It was, beaten down until I could not hold on to anything else. Yeah. And it's interesting because like when you're holding on so tight onto an old system, an old structure that's no longer serving you, it will beat it out of you. It'll if you don't, it'll beat it out until you have to let go. Your hands cannot hold on any longer. And then amazingly, what happens? You fall back and you just let go of the bank and you fall back into the river, and the river just sweeps you.
Yeah.
it just sweeps you. And it's amazing. You just sit there and in all of this happened. And the next 2.5 years, all expenses paid, living in a resort, which was like an absolute, dream. Like, could never have happened to me. Like, could I live in a resort for 2.5 years?
Yeah.
Just showing up and all sorts of amazing things that showed up, including an incredible human who showed up in my life, my daughter, Allegra. And a very, very short story on this one is, I'd been trying to have a baby with my partner, and we'd spent, literally years through IVF and through the adoption processes and everything else in Australia. And we'd even gone into surrogacy and tens of thousands of dollars, and we're going to have a child. Yeah. And in that whole process, that broke down as well. And we came to a place where we literally, the December, as we're going back to Bali, in the December, we made a pact and a decision that, maybe there's a greater purpose for us. Maybe this thing of being a parent is not what we need to be focused on. And we get back to Bali, and we're sitting and we're listening to a lady talk about this massive challenge where, there's this woman who's left her child with her. The child is 9 months old. The lady who's explaining to us is, 60s, and she's, really challenged, physically, and she's in breakdown about what she needs to do with this child. And this woman's not coming back to look after her child. And I'm sitting there with my partner and going, we'll take the child. It's sorted. It's done. Yeah. And within a few days, there's a crib next to my bed, and our 9-month-old baby has just shown up like that. Just insane. Like she was waiting for us, of course. But these are the things, like we hold on to a certain version of what we need to be doing. And then when we surrender, it all just goes so quickly back to us.
I think, John, that's the key why a lot of us are not getting our breakthrough, as they say, is the surrender piece. And I try to use, because my background is Christianity. I grew up in the church and stuff like that. And I bring people to this garden. It's called Gethsemane. And here is Jesus just crying. He's like, I don't want to do this at all, man. I want nothing to do with this. And that's where we get into that space, and we are working it up. And then eventually he says, you know what? I'm done, man. I surrender. And then once he surrendered, then all the soldiers show up, everybody who was supposed to come in for him to do what he was supposed to do, came to about. And that, I use that example to show people that everyone has to come to that place. If he has to come there, sure, you and me got to come to that place, because beyond that is some new adventure that we don't know about. It is a place of sometimes some turmoil, but within that turmoil is a tremendous amount of peace that is incredible. And you're sitting looking around and people going, and you're like, I should be a little more upset, but I just can't be. I can't. It's not there. And you're at this place where it's absolute peaceful, and you know that you didn't bring you there, because you know that the flip side of that is that a couple of days ago, you were pumping the iron trying to figure out this thing and doing it within your ability. And it's never within our ability. At least that spot right there is not within ours. Is that we come to this place where we must release all of what we've been taught, all of it, just let it go, and then watch this stuff comes one at a time. And I'm so glad that you are here, man, because I know I have this conversation with a lot of people, and the spiritual people that are there, that I know for a fact that people need to know and hear of them. And it is this financial piece that is holding them and keeping them and from moving to the next level. So the universe, as you said, God is whoever had to bring you out, man. So because there are a lot of people out there that still need you. And I think, John, it's going to, your service, your wisdom, your team are going to be needed more now, because there was another event that took place that COVID came in, and there was a lot of people pregnant with a lot of businesses, ideas, and books. And they were pregnant, but because of the busyness of life and living, they could have aborted that pregnancy. You had to go through that crash in order not to abort that pregnancy. And because you were able to do that, you came out afresh with this. Now there's an onslaught of people coming, John, and they're going to need you, man, because a lot of births, a lot of children were given birth at that time, and they're going to need you as a catalyst to walk them through. So talk to us, John, as to now these things beginning. You surrendered something that you had desired for years with your partner. Was you were just sitting there and a conversation and all this thousands of dollars. And here was this gift that was dropped off to you from the desire of your heart, that spiritual need that must, and I'm telling people, it's more than that natural stuff. This spiritual desire will cause things to happen, John. And look at your situation that you and your partner sitting across from this person. And I think you were given this gift, this desire fulfilled. So once you began to see this, John, that there is power within the surrendering and the floodgates were open, how did you now begin to manage John within that? How did you manage the onslaught of the stuff happening? Because you can get loose there, lost there too, John. How did you begin to assimilate all of this that was happening, and then within yourself begin to settle in, manage it, prevent yourself from going backwards, as they say?
That's a huge question. Huge question, because there's so much in that, and you know it. And that's why you ask it. There's so much I can share in so many aspects of it. So let me see if I can do this in most effective way to kind of get different aspects which are profound for me. So I'm going to address the first one, which is the spiritual one. I thought at that stage that now I was just, I'm far more spiritual. I'm connected, and I'm being driven by spirit and everything else. But I had no idea. I had no idea. In hindsight, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And the reason I had no idea is that I still had so much of the past experience driving behaviors between it. And, the driver was still there. The belief systems, the structures were still there. I needed to actually stop the process. So I'd say probably, I think it's about 3 years later, 2014, 2015, I got to a point where I could still see the record playing. You understand that. Certain circumstances, this is how it plays out. This thing plays out. And I see these records. And I just got to a point where I went, you know what? I am done. I'm going to give this one last crack. I've tried to restart this, and I was building already the business of that we have now in different ways. And I was trying to build it in a way that wasn't money driven, wasn't status, and it wasn't driven from these places of lack and stuff like that. But it kept playing out. I could see the record. It was there again. And I just went, you know what? I clearly haven't worked out how to let go of this stuff. So I'm just going to stop it all. And I actually took a six month sabbatical. Shut down all the companies, shut down all incomes. I shut down my commitment. In fact, I actually separated from my partner at that time. I didn't know I was going to be separated at the time, but I went into a sabbatical, and I had to basically turn all of the outside projections and turn them around and just look at myself and see what am I projecting out that's creating this reality. And that took me down, really the spiritual part. For the first time, I actually got to feel my actual spirit. And different opportunities showed up, and different programs showed up, and different people showed up to have much deeper conversations with me. I found a coach who talked about my core wound that was playing out, which was generational for me. That literally had followed me through the spirit replaying each time the same record. Like I got to see that. I got to see different aspects of myself. I got to awaken my spirit. I got to feel like the energetic of spirit speaking through my body, and feel the awakening of my spirit through my eyes, to what I could see, what I could taste, smell, connections with people, everything. I had to go to this place of, and again, it's surrender and it's letting go. And my job. And this was one of the mentors. He said to me, because I was asking, like, how long is this going to take? When can I go back to work? And he said, John, your measure is when you have nothing that's driving you. There is nothing driving you anymore. There's nothing that's putting you to go, I need to do this or I need to do that. You're going to get to a place where you're so at peace. And then from that place of peace, and calls it you're kind of burning it all down. And all of those cinders then just turn to dust. And he says, from that dust, the phoenix shall rise. And that's exactly the journey I was going on. That was what I was aiming for. I was aiming for all of those little cinders that were kind of like, I need to do some work because I need to pay these bills. But everything was just being sorted out in the background, by the way. Like universe showed me stuff I had no idea of, that it had my back. My bills were getting paid because people just deposited money 2 hours before a bill needed to be paid, and exactly the amount. And like these types of things were just happening every other day, every month. And somehow I was just being held. I was, my commitment to self was being protected, and the universe was responding back to me to allow me to do more of it and more of it whilst I was there. And it was super uncomfortable. It was like possibly some of the most uncomfortable, but most spiritually awakening and liberating process I've ever gone through. And I had multiple mentors and coaches around me to help me through that. By the end of it, because I was constantly looking for people to kind of just give me some idea that I'm actually still sane. But it was, there's lots of ways to do this. People go on ayahuasca trips, and they go, they take some mushrooms or what else. And I think these moments where we can actually allow people to kind of see past ourselves. I think these are amazing tips and mechanisms to allow people to actually awaken that spirit.
I think so.
Just to be able to see that there's something greater than us, outside of force that actually is so much greater. I think those plant-based medicines and stuff like that, I think they're amazing tools for that. A lot of people kind of go down rabbit holes of that. I think that's too much. I think we still got to do the work on ourselves, but to awaken people and give them that connection to spirit, I think is amazing. So that's one part of it. I'm going to try and answer a few aspects of it, because there's lots to this, if that's okay. So that's one aspect. The other part is relationships. So from that, the next part of the cycle, because now this was the business cycle and stuff like that I was working on. The other part of the cycle, which I hadn't worked out, was my relationships. Why do I keep having relationships? And that was my original question. Which was like, how come I'm in these relationships and then I'm out? So of course, my commitment was, whoever I bring into my life, I want to make sure that they hold me accountable to everything that I promised inside the relationship. And my current partner isn't the person who showed up 5 years ago. And what's amazing about relationships, which I've now learned, is that everything that you need to see in your life, everything that needs to be healed, every part of you that you've not loved or brought into self, all of these traits that are disowned, as John Demartini calls it, your disowned traits. It'll show the relationship. The other person is a perfect match to show every one of those to you.
Yes.
And I had no idea. I had no idea how perfectly the universe makes this happen.
Yeah.
Literally, you cannot imagine how
you can't design it. It has to come from somewhere else and someone else. You cannot design it.
And you're attracted to this person because of all of these things that you think you're attracted to. But actually, all that they're doing is they're helping you to see all that. So within a couple of years of that relationship, all of the stuff around my relationship and everything else and my being all showed up in massive ways.
Yeah.
And I knew at this stage that like this is now the case. And the pressure and I guess the love and commitment that you have for the other person gives you the opportunity to evolve and to make the commitments to actually find to go through it and to to surrender even further.
Yes, the safe space, to grow.
Yeah, that's right. And also that space, which is a push, because that other person loves you so much, and they
so much.
push you. And it sometimes doesn't sound like a beautiful push. It sounds like if you don't get sort this shit out, I'm out of here.
I'm out. Yeah,
that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful encouragement to make it.
Yeah, so, I think so.
This relationship part, so many people get into a relationship. They get into that hardship of the relationship, which is the second phase. First phase is the love and everything else, and super attraction, and then the second phase is the unveiling of all of the stuff that you really are there to. And I'd love to encourage anyone in this conversation to stay and do the healing inside of that relationship. If that person is willing to stay in it with you and do the work with you, and just because what I found looking back, because I can only look back, is that every time I let go of the relationship, I continue to play out the same thing again on the next one and then the next one. So I realized that this was the opportunity. This was the opportunity for me to heal it for all of my past relationships and heal it for me now, so that it does not continue. It won't continue with my daughter. It won't continue with anyone that I have influenced, because I've completed it here. And I think those are the two big things that I want to bring to this conversation.
One of my good friends, Jonathan Deporte, he has his revelation was with the ayahuasca and to take people to that place faster, because a lot of and the people that he deal with are those high pressured CEO boys and girls that don't know how to calm down and so forth. So that was his revelation, because he was from that group. And he does that all around the world. He has retreats that do that. And his team approach it from the medical side more so than just the psychedelic side. That's a part of it, but they have physicians, they have all kinds of the medical team to work with that to create. And his vision is to create a safe space by which one can have this encounter to begin their journey. The loving part, man, and staying within there and trusting, that's even some of what I'm going through now, because I walked away from corporate America and I'm here, as I told you, where I'm at. And I'm in a space where, I'm being taken care of with stuff coming from all over. And it is humbling to me, because it's not who and how I operate. And so I have to learn how, and that's where I'm at right now, to be honest with you. And I'm walking and learning where you have been. So it's really great to hear someone that has been there. And I believe the person that comes into our life, they are there for what they call to bring the scotomas, the blind side that we have within our personality. And a lot of people focus on the DNA of the body, but there's a spiritual DNA that we bring down from generations and all over, that we bring with us too while we're here in this body. And that's the stuff we have to deal with and face those things along with the human part of it that we got from our parents and all of those different things. So this work is really it's a difficult work in the sense that it causes you to strip yourself naked. Mentally, you are stripped naked in all of the lies and the other things. And you begin to see your nakedness, the trueness of who you are, to heal. And sometimes you need that other additional person that is there, has the understanding and the revelation that this partnership that you have, this is a covenant. It's more deeper than just, we're dating or we're married. Marriage is not even deeper, like a covenant that you have with this person. It's deep stuff. And that means that you are allowing each other within the covenant, the space to grow, the space for me to say to you, you need to straighten yourself up, because this is, and we have to be mature enough that when we are given that information, we don't respond from the base part of our animalistic thing. We can cuss up a storm and do all the stuff. And I used to do that till I realized the purpose of that person in my life, whether if it's a friend or whoever, when they make those comments, it is my responsibility to make the adjustment, because they are seeing something that I am incapable of seeing. And because I want to be better and more robust and lighter, as they say, because as we are stripped away in these levels, there's a freedom there, John, that is incredible. There's a freedom, man, and to live from there. And that's where I said in the onset, in the beginning, we're called to live from there. Once we have found out who we are, our gifts, and that's where we live from, so that we can become servants. So here you are equipped now. You're learning more. You're still, the journey is until we die. It's continuous. You have your relationship. You have correction as to, how. So now tell to us brief, how did you start to now say, okay, everything is coming back, and the nudge comes and says, okay, it's time for you to walk into that space and be present.
So that for me actually came through the relationship, and actually came, I've had it a few times in my life to kind of give me that nudge. And I'm a self-motivated human in general. However, you get a nudge from somebody who sees your greatness.
Yes.
Gives you the loving sledgehammer.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's true. Absolutely true.
So it's that loving sledgehammer moment where literally it's dealt in a non-negotiable statement of love. I read this beautiful little thing that I posted with our team the other day, which says, other people setting their boundaries with you is not an indication that they don't want you. It's an indication that they do. This is how they're setting the ground for you to be there.
Yeah.
So exactly what you're saying. These are the opportunities that people are presenting to us. And sometimes it comes as this is the final stretch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think I've been read my rights a few times.
That's wonderful, though, isn't it? She's there, John. She's there to do that. That is part of the purpose of her being there, is that, and it's being done out of love. From your partner there is done being in a space of absolutely 100% pure love, and seeing your the opportunity that you can be, and is excited to get you there. And so I think, John, it is a space of love, man. But it could be a brutal place, but it's a space of love. Yeah.
I feel that if anyone's kind of listening, they're getting those calls in their life where like literally, you're being demanded. This is you need to do this way. This is such a powerful message from universe to show you some direction that you're clearly not listening to. And you would have, at that moment, you can actually start to look back and go, are there any other signs that I've missed that have been telling me to go there? And if you look back, you will see them, and they would have been, they would have been much quieter. I call them the feather, the brick, and the Mack truck, as I mentioned. And we're always getting feathers. We're always getting those little signs, those little whispers, a little feather on the side. But if you're so caught up in your day-to-day activity, in the process of, I love this, and because it kind of fits into this. A teacher of mine, Peter Sage, talks about different consciousnesses, the different consciousness of how we show up in the world. Yeah. And the first level of consciousness is life happens to me. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the world lives in that place of, oh my God, those Putin's doing this war, and oh my God, my life is over, and life is just happening to me. Like the government's this, and the medical system is that. Like it's all out of their control. It's all happening to you. So you are the victim of life. Mm-hmm. Then the next level of consciousness is life happens by me. If it's not for me, if I'm not doing it, then it's not going to happen. And that most of people in successful roles, like these are the people you're talking about, these guys who are like, running hard, pushing hard, CEOs, CFOs, all that type, pushing hard. Like this is happening, by them. And if they don't show up, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Next level of consciousness is life happens through me. This is probably where I'm sitting right now. And you jump between them. Sometimes I drop into by me, and sometimes I need to. Yeah. And I push something forward, but then the idea is to then go sit back in stillness and actually, listen to the messages through you. And when life happens through you, it sweeps you off your feet. And those are those moments that I've witnessed in my life where I get swept off my feet. And there's nothing I needed to do to make that happen or have this show up in my life. It just swept me off my feet and took me. And then there's the highest level, which is life happens as me. The great gurus and very high spiritual leaders, they're in that realm where all is one and one is all, and as me, as I am, as is the world. I'm no close to that. Not there yet. You start to see that, and you start to go, okay, get it. I'm doing. Life is happening as a result of me doing. You don't have the time. You don't create the space to listen to happen through you and have those messages. And I feel that if people just kind of look at that for a moment and go, okay, could I be more in the listening, creating more space, more space and more space? Commitment to self is probably the best way to do that. And I can't state it any better than I had Richard Branson on stage about 10 years ago, and I was asking him questions, and one of the questions I asked him was, so Richard, when you wake up, he at the time he had like 200 businesses, 200 under the Virgin brand, and I said, what do you do in the morning when you wake up and like there's a whole bunch of messages and all sorts of shit's hitting the fan, like how do you deal with all of these problems? And he looks at me and goes, I go to the gym. What do you mean you go to the gym? Like, how's that sorting out the problems? He goes, I go and I look after myself. I go look after my body, my state, and my being. And that's my commitment to self. I do that every morning, no matter what is happening. Yeah. And when I come out of that, 99% of those problems are already solved.
Are gone. Yeah.
And so I was like, I could not understand that 10 years ago. Yeah. Now I get it. Yeah. He's number one, committed to self, committed to creating the life and the environment and the experience that he wants of life. And maybe he's meditating or whatever else, or maybe he's goal setting or he's envisioning or whatever he might be doing during that process of, being in the body and working out. And he's in joy, and he's creating his environment, and he's doing it for self, body, and for the mind and for the soul. And then when he comes out, the whole experience shifts, like realities shift. And they happen because of that commitment to self and creating that space for self. And I think that's possibly one of the biggest things that I've learned in life is creating more and more space. And when you create more and more commitment to self, the universe gives you more indication that you can do more of it, and more of it, and more of it.
I agree 100%. Everyone that has been listening to us, I want you guys to get into his space, because housed within his space, as much wisdom, power, you're going to find some change in your life. Just touch base with John and get into his space. We're going to provide all the information for you to get access to him. And I want you guys to learn from him so that you and I will continue this journey to be better human spirit. He mentioned something in the last state. You have to have that committed self, commitment to yourself. It is where you learn about trust. It is learned love. It is learned forgiveness. You're learning some powerful stuff there. and you are not allowing the crescendo of life to deter you from learning and walking in your journey to love you. That is the most powerful place to be. It is how we are supposed to live. And this gentleman, John right here, is going to help assist you to bring you guys, all those entrepreneurs, all those spiritual folks that I know many of you guys, I'm going to contact you guys and tell you he's here. I found someone that will help you to get to where you and I have talked about. So I want to thank you so much, John, for coming, man, and sharing with us. I know it's a little longer than 45 minutes, but I appreciate this. This stuff is rich, man. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. You're a beautiful man. Love your message. Love your commitment to share these stories and inspiration with the world, man. This is the work.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.